Supreme Lord, eternal truth, let us obey thee alone and live according to truth. Paramocha Prabhu Satyam Nityatvamev Kevalam Anuvartamahī Satyam Anujivam Kevalam Om Santihi Santihi Santihi. Namaste, good evening, Vande Mataram, welcome all of you. The topic of this great evening's discussion will be on the object of integral yoga. So very interesting topic, and here the divine will explain about the union with the divine. So this is the charm, the beauty of this topic. The master will explain what is the track, what is the aim, what is the objective. So we will try to listen everything in brief from the Sri Aurobindo's own writings. The topic of discussion for this great evening will be a glorious one, the object of integral yoga. So Sri Aurobindo quotes here, the object of the yoga, very interesting and very truth. That is, Sri Aurobindo has unveiled the truth, and Sri Aurobindo tried to quote. The object of the yoga is to enter into and be possessed by the divine presence and consciousness, to love the divine for the divine sake alone, to be turned in our nature into the nature of the divine, and in our will and works and life to be the instrument of the divine. Just imagine everywhere only divine, 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 nothing else. So I will try to quote it again, the beautiful sentence. The sentence has got its own value, own virtue and own beauty. The object of this yoga is to enter into and be possessed by the divine presence and consciousness, number one. To love the divine for the divine sake alone. Number three, to be turned in our nature into the nature of the divine. Number three. Number four, in our will and works and life to be the instrument of the divine. This is the object of integral yoga. So its object is not to be a great yogi or a superman, although that may come on the way and maybe our destiny. But or to grab at the divine for the sake of the ego's power. This is not for the ego also. Pride or pleasure, even that is not also the aim. It is not for the moksha through liberation, though liberation comes by it and all else may come. But this must not be our objects. The divine alone is our object. Divine is all, divine, only divine. This is the divine. And the master, the divine explains only the divine, there is nothing but divine. So, union with the divine is the only object of this divine path. So, next we'll see. To come to this yoga merely with the idea of being a superman would be an act of vital egoism, which would defeat its own object. So it may come, this supermanhood, it may come on the way, it may be, it is there, definitely it will come, but this object is different. Those who put this object in their front of their preoccupations invariably come into grief spiritually and otherwise. So just before fixing the aim, everybody must be very much conscious and very much cautious. The aim of this yoga, student the quotes it again, the aim of this yoga is first to enter into the divine consciousness by merging it into the separative ego, including in doing so, one finds one's true individual self, which is not limited, vain, and selfish human ego, but a portion of the divine. To find the divine, except divine, there is nothing. Ego has no place absolutely. And secondly, to bring down the supramental consciousness on earth to transform mind, life, and body. That is the second aspect. So, and all else can be only a result of these two aims, not the primary object of this yoga. So very interesting. Then next quotation and next definition will be very much interesting and much more attractive rather. You must get out of certain wrong ideas that you seem to have about yoga. For this, these are dangerous and ought to be thrown away at every sadhaka. By every sadhaka, must be thrown away. This idea, this conception is a must, and everybody should learn, know, and try to practice in life. The object of his yoga not to become like Sri Aurobindo or the mother. Just this is writing of the Sri Aurobindo. So the object of this yoga is not become like Sri Aurobindo and or the mother. Those who cherish the idea easily come to the further idea that they can become their equals even greater. This is the only this is only to feed the ego. So the master, the divine can be attained, of course. But thing is that there is no comparison because divine is divine. Second point, the object of yoga in the second point is not to get power or to more powerful than others. This is not the yoga's principle or objective. To get power or to be more powerful than others or to have the great siddhis or to be to great and wonderful or miraculous things. This is not the object of this yoga. Somebody must be able to understand, and this is the preliminary precaution must be understood and followed out. Then number three, the object of yoga is not to be a great yogi or a superman. This is the egoistic way of taking the yoga and can lead to no good. Avoid it altogether. This, if it is this idea is there, try to avoid it. Not to be a great yogi or a superman. This is not the objective. Number four, to talk about the supramental and think of bringing it down in yourself is the most dangerous of all. This is a very it is a great precaution, it is a great condition, it is a great thing someone must understand. In it may bring an entire megalomania and a loss of balance. This is the thing what is going to happen, going to come for the sadhakas. Him sadhaka may be affected by it. What the sadhaka has to seek is the full opening to the divine, the psychic change of his consciousness, the spiritual change. This one everybody should aspire for and try to have. Of that change of consciousness, selfishness, desirelessness, humility, bhakti, then surrender, calm, equality, peace, quiet sincerity are necessary constituents. These are to be followed and re-followed. These are to be exactly understood in the clear format so that his ego can be persuaded. Until he has the psychic and the spiritual change, to think of being supramental is an absurdity and arrogant absurdity. Sri Aurobindo quotes upon. So spiritual, only divine, no place of ego. That is the conditions required is our change of consciousness, selflessness, desirelessness, humility, bhakti, surrender, calm, equality, peace, quiet sincerity. These are the necessity ingredients, constituents. All these egoistic ideas, if indulged, can only aggrandize the ego, spoil the sadhana, and lead to serious spiritual dangers. This should be rejected altogether. The very interesting topic, very interesting definition that Sri Aurobindo gives it. Everyone has to understand and follow in his course of action. Of course, Sri Aurobindo course, you can do yoga without being great. There is no need of being great. On the contrary, humility is the first necessity. Humility is the first necessity for one who has ego and pride, can't realize the highest. So, egolessness, if you wish to install there the living presence, keep the temple clean. That is the most required way. The way of yoga, still in the course again, the way of yoga followed here has a different purpose from others. From comparison, there is a from others. It has different one. For its aim is not only to rise out of the ordinary ignorant world consciousness into the divine consciousness. That is the one aspect. But to bring the supramental power of that divine consciousness down into the ignorance of mind, life, and the body. number one. To transform them, number two. Number three, to manifest the divine here and to create the divine life in matter. That is the major concern, that is the major step we are dealing with, we are doing here. This is the an exceedingly difficult aim and difficult yoga here in the course. Don't touch the, sometimes people do claim and proclaim, don't touch it, your fingers may burn out. This integral yoga is like a fire. Sri Aurobindo also he writes here, this is exceedingly difficult aim and a difficult yoga. To many or most, it will seem impossible. Sri Aurobindo sarcastically, clearly clarifies before coming to this track of yoga. You just feel this is the aim and objective of this yoga. All the established forces of the ordinary ignorant world consciousness are opposed to it and deny it and try to prevent it. And the sadhaka will find in his mind, life, and body full of most obstinate impediments to its realization. If you accept the ideal wholeheartedly, face all the difficulties, leave the past and all its ties behind you, and are ready to give up everything and risk everything for this divine possibility, then only, if you are able to fulfill these conditions, then if you are prepared in mind and life and body, then only you do one thing, you can hope to discover by experience of truth behind it. Then in very interestingly, Sri Aurobindo quotes again, the sadhana of this yoga does not proceed through any of the mental teachings or prescribed forms of the meditation. It is not the normal track, normal process, nothing is there. Mantras and others, but by aspiration, by self-concentration inwards or upwards, by self-opening to an influence, to the divine power above us and its workings, to the divine presence in the heart, and by the rejection of all that is foreign to these things. These are the methods, these are the ideas, and these are the tracks. It is only and by, it is here in the course, it is only and by the rejection of all that is foreign to our things. It is only by faith, aspiration, and surrender that the self-opening can come. So these are the things Sri Aurobindo categorically explains. Very difficult yoga. You have to do something. If you are that much conscious and that much cautious, you can come. The major process is faith, aspiration, and surrender. They are opening, of course, it is written. Then Sri Aurobindo, of course, quotes interesting well. It is not indispensable to be an ascetic. It is enough if one can learn to live within an inner being instead of on the surface, discover the soul or true individuality which is veiled by the surface mind and life forces, and open the being to the superconscient reality. That is the requirement. If you can be able to know it and measure it and try to impose, maintain in life, try to follow in life, that is the most helpful attitude. But in this, one cannot succeed unless one is fully sincere and one-pointed in their effort. That is the required sincerity and one-pointed effort. As to the second question, we'll little bit ahead we'll go. Peace is a necessary basis, but peace is not sufficient. Share in the quotes. Peace is a necessary thing, but peace is not sufficient. So, because peace, if it is strong and permanent, can liberate the inner being, which can can become a calm and unmoved witness of the external movements. This is the liberation of the sannyasin. In some cases, it can liberate the external also, throwing the old nature out into the environmental consciousness. Here in the quote sheet, environmental consciousness. And even this is the liberation, not a transformation. Because this yoga is the transformation, it is especially transformation and perfection. Then to be full union with the divine is the final aim we have to accept. Vande Mataram.